Disease itself is, there's a lot of management effort involved in disease. And most of the disease, the key is about biosecurity and management for sure. For this particular disease, it's very challenging, takes a lot of effort for that. So in order to, really understanding how to manage disease, you really need to know how the disease progress and how it's being transmitted in the birds.
Welcome to the Poultry Podcast Show. Today I am here with Chen. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here. Hi, everyone.
I'm so excited to talk to you today about some of your expertise areas. But first, I would love to hear how you got into poultry.
Thanks for your question. I believe different people have different answers, but also share some, similarity. I actually start from the vet school. So I love animals. And somehow I'm really passionate about biology since middle school. So I choose veterinary medicine as my career path. So I started my vet school in 2009 in China Agriculture University. During my second and third year, actually, I got a chance to do some research during my program. And then I found this professor from Animal Science Department who is heavily working with poultry. So we worked together for some research projects with mainly focus on the coccidiosis in free-range chicken. I really enjoyed that experience. We actually published some paper about it. And since then, I started working with the poultry and become more and more, enjoy the work in that area. And later in 2014, I got a chance to start my PhD in poultry nutrition at University of Georgia Poultry Science Department with Dr. Wu Kun Kim. For this program. So since then, I've been working in poultry. It's almost like 10 years already.
Yeah. I know people have that path. They kind of stumble into poultry and then it hooks them in.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely hooked. So after you graduated with your DVM and then you finished your PhD, what was your pathway after that to your current position?
After I graduated from PhD, I actually work as a postdoc for 1 year and a half in the same lab. I was working on the laying hen bone health for my PhD, and during my postdoc, I'm working with a broader bone health. And then later, it's actually the COVID hit, so it's become really challenging time to looking for a career, to think about the next step. I do very passionate about poultry industry and trying to look for a job over there. But I'm lucky to get academic position from NC State actually, which turned out to be, I really enjoy the work in academia to have the flexibility on the working and, freedom to choose different topic and study different questions and working with very inspiring young generation of students and all these smart people in the department in different area. So I really enjoy the academic work, since then. So with that, actually, after postdoc, I joined NC State in 2020, August. And during that time, I'm mainly focused on the turkey disease, protozoa disease mainly. To begin with, I'm working side by side with Dr. Blackhead and learn a lot from him on the turkey protozoa, especially the Blackhead disease we're going to talk about today. And then after that 2 years of career, I actually moved back to UGA to have my current job right now, working as an extension specialist in poultry nutrition, heavily in extension and with 25% of research, the rest all extension. Again, back to nutrition world, but still we cannot ignoring the impact of disease. It's always mingled together. So we're dealing with mostly nutrition problem and also gut health issue challenge as well. So
yeah, I find that the fields are never alone. You always have to combine a couple when you're working with chickens. So get to be an expert in a few areas.
Yeah, especially in the extension position, you got the questions from all different type of questions come to you. Sometimes they think that was a nutrition question, but it's turned out to be maybe a management or disease question. So you got to know a little bit about everything before you can direct them to the right resources to solve the problem. So yeah, it's
A lot of critical thinking at play, which is awesome.
It is.
Eastman serves veterinarians and nutritionists in agrochemical and animal health industries by helping them select, evaluate, and implement innovative nutritional programs. Eastman works with your team to customize your gut health approach in feed and water. Eastman's approach addresses nutritional and bacterial challenges and finds new ingredient preservation and hygiene solutions. Explore ways to accelerate and innovate your programs. Contact the animal nutrition team at eastman.com.
So in your current position, you're working on both nutrition and disease. Can you tell us a little bit about the Blackhead work that you've done across a couple of your positions?
Yes, sure. So during my time at NC State, we're mainly working with turkey protozoan. So the breed we're working with is turkeys mostly. Blackhead definitely one of the major focus among these other parasites like Cocozoma and Trichomonas. And during that period, basically, we are trying to do a practical project to really trying to find a strategy or a way to solve this problem or reduce the loss of turkeys because of this disease. So mainly focus on testing different feed additives, water treatment to reduce mortality in turkeys, and also study the stress factors or management factors on disease progression and transmission. And also we actually do some small projects for early disease detection from the behaviors or sensors or some other really crazy ideas. So we've been trying, including like tobacco and as a potential treatment or some other crazy ideas. We're really just trying to do everything to see if there's anything we missed on this disease. And moved to the Georgia since Georgia State is a heavily broader focus state. So I kind of changed my subject a little bit more to the broader breeders, which is also a concern for the Blackhead disease. Similar pipeline, we also study treatment, stress factors on disease progression, and trying to see if there's anything we can improve to make the situation better.
So what are some of the key time points in terms of what's happening during the disease progression and then what can be done to reduce problems or treat?
The disease itself is, there's a lot of management effort involved in disease. And most of the disease, the key is about biosecurity and management for sure. This particular disease is very challenging, takes a lot of effort for that. So in order to, really understanding how to manage disease, you really need to know how the disease progress and how it's being transmitted in the birds. So what we see right now for turkeys, it really depends on it's associated with the seasonality. Like during the warm season and rainy season, we see more outbreak. And also for certain location, especially the ones close to the long-living chicken or close to the field, which is using chicken litter as a fertilizer, have a higher chance to get a Blackhead disease. So, these locations or these seasons, definitely time points you want to level up your biosecurity or management to avoid, disease outbreak. For the broader breeders, a little bit different. First, they have a pretty strict biosecurity already for the breeders. However, from what we see in the field, most outbreak happen during the first 6 weeks. You see an increased mortality just by several percent from week 4 to week 6. And sometimes we also see people complain that the birds has a Blackhead when they move the pullet from, to the laying house. Around that period, we see some, mortality related to Blackhead as well. So these are kind of two periods we want to pay more attention as well. So that's the kind of situation right now.
Yeah. So is this disease does composting or litter treatments, are there any amendments that you can do to treat if that's one of the major vectors? Or is it a very, kind of like coccidiosis, the sport, they can hang out. They are totally cool with going through composting. So is that one of the same issues with Blackhead?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question because blackhead is, a protozoa. It's
Yeah.
caused by the Hismonus maliagrides. So can we use something we learned from a cocci or other protozoan for this parasite? And composting litter treatment definitely is in, our radar to look into it. But research in this area is not really that, a lot to really prove a point that we can use something effectively. But people still doing something related to that. So one thing I want to point out, even though they're all protozoa, but they're different.
Yeah.
And in some, perspective, it's like a very different somehow. It's also a surprise to me. So first, Hismonus, this parasite itself, cannot really survive in the environment very well. It's a very fragile to dry environment, and also the pH. If the pH below 4, they can die very quickly. So that's actually give you some ideas if you can keep a litter dry, or you can using certain ways to reduce the pH in the litter. That could help reduce the transmission, or at least reinfection to the birds during an outbreak.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the things we can look at. But still, somehow it's so hard to control it, even you do these two measures. But people did do a litter topping. Like after outbreak happening, they call the sick birds. Meanwhile, apply the litter amendment or the topping the fresh litter on the top, trying to cut off transmission. It helped, but not 100%. The outbreak may still happen. Yeah.
So is this something that moves quickly through a flock? I mean, there's certain diseases that kind of seem to be in one area of the poultry house and they move quickly or slowly. Is this something that you notice that is really fast, or has it got like a slower progression across all the birds?
Yeah, I mean, we see all different type of situations. Sometimes outbreak is, you can almost track down like this hot has outbreak, and then probably in about like 2 or 3 weeks, you see another one, you can track down them. Sometimes you just have this outbreak continuously all the time throughout the year, and with not really high mortality. So it's all different situations. We talked about, earlier, it's very fragile in the environment. Maybe the question is like, how can they move between the houses or faster or slower? Which is actually Hismonus, if you talk about transmission between the different location, they rely on another vector called Heterachus gallinero. We also call Zika worms.
Mm-hmm.
So they can produce the eggs which contain the Hismonus. And this eggs very, very tough. It's so hard to remove this from the environment. As you mentioned earlier, the composting or heated up or any disinfectant, actually, most of them are not very effective. Heating one, we actually haven't really done a lot on that part. We do have some, wind rolling program for certain producers that maybe help on the situation that we don't know. But for the disinfectant, we did try something, trying to see if we can kill these vectors that contain the Hismonus. So far, only very high concentrate bleach can do the job, but which is not practical. No one use that high concentration. So it's really hard to remove this. And this eggs very sticky, can be attached to the vectors, fomites, even the human to transmit between the different farms. So when you talk about the speed of transmission or the pattern transmission, is really related to the management, how concentrate the farm. I mean, how many farm in one area, how the manage goes, how the sharing equipment or vector migration between the farm. These are the factors really decide how quick the transmission may happen and how challenging the situation may be in that area. So
man, that definitely would cause variability.
It is. And we're really trying to really look in this. We do develop a survey that we're trying to understanding all these factors. We think it is matter to, it is matter to actually for the disease transmission or progression. And then with that information, we can develop some strategies to improve the situation and to better manage the disease transmission and progression. So
Okay, so beyond management, what are some of the other treatments, either water or nutrition, that you've been working on or others have been working on that might help manage this disease?
Yeah, that's a great question. Management definitely play a role in it, but more and more people are really interested in the, feed additives or water treatment to reduce the loss from the disease. One of the reason is because it's easier. It doesn't involve in a lot of management effort. And also, we can just put that as a program into the production. So we did study testing a lot of commercial products since 2016 actually, along with the effort of Dr. Blackhead, we are testing altogether 132 products from like 28 companies and 192 trials altogether in different systems just to see if we can find a cure for the disease. Unfortunately, we didn't find a cure for the disease, but we do see a different type of positive impact on the disease progression. So I want to put this up front. One thing is like we kind of from the data we do some analysis trying to figure out what category has more potential and how we use these treatments. One information we got, which is not surprise to us, is these treatments only more effective when the mortality is low. If the mortality is very high, basically they didn't show much positive impact on the birds. But when they have lower mortality, it can show different level reduction on the mortality. So that would be the situation you're looking for feed or water treatment for disease. Um, I can give you kind of categories. So for example, like we do see the fermented product or the functional carbohydrate category has a more potential to reduce mortality compared to the other category. From our own database, I cannot really speak to all the publications that what we've been seeing from this lab. But also we see the phytogenic related product and also some kind of mixture product has also potential to reduce mortality or the scores in lesions in the liver or Zika. So this probably something we can keep looking for and testing to see if we can find a solution for the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, did you find a difference between waterborne or feed? I know some of the feed products require the birds to still eat. I mean, that's one of the drawbacks is when they don't feel good, maybe they eat less. Did you find a difference between water or feed?
That's really a good question. I mean, you really raise a really good point. Like, when they get really sick, they're probably not really consume anything. That's a problem. But most of the testing we do is more like preventive. So we're feeding them from beginning until the challenge and see how the impact on it. And I also want to point out we are doing called a direct infection model. Basically, we're looking for prevention treatment, not really related to any transmission type of research. So in general, the industry prefers the water treatment better than feed treatment, just for management purpose. It's just much so easier and to do that. We don't really see a difference between the ways how you put the treatment in from our limited database. And also, we actually didn't see any difference between different testing model, like either batteries, isolators, or fluorpens. Um, so actually, I cannot really get a conclusive saying feed is better or water is better. It really depends what type of product you're really providing to test.
Yeah. They all have their own nuances, it sounds like. So do you think that with all of the sorts of the categories of products that might have had an impact, the functional carbohydrates or fermented products or phytogenics, do they have a common mode of action? Do you think that's why? Or is there something else why those general categories seem to provide a benefit?
Yeah, definitely. Each type of product has their own mode of action in terms of this disease. Roughly we can say either direct action on the blackhead, which is just killing the parasites, or
Mhm.
indirect impact could be through improving the gut health or general health, reducing the bacterial load. We do see the co-infection can make the situation worse. So maybe through that route. And also changing the gut environment. Some product can reduce the pH in the lower gut. That's maybe one of the mode actions for the
Mm.
disease as well.
Yeah.
So and yeah, so it really depends what kind of a product is going into for testing. But also it is important to understand that first before doing research or using it in the field. For example, fermentation product they may require a little bit longer time to be
Oh,
effective. So you don't
yeah.
want to feed them right before the disease outbreak, or you're going to have outbreak. You need to save enough time for that. Same thing for the research as well. We may need to change the challenging time to make sure it's reaching that period before become effective. And also, really important things to keep in mind is um, Hismonus is infecting the Zika, which is the
Mm.
very end of the gut. Anything we provided, we also think about the delivery. You don't want something being absorbed or denatured in the upper gut, which won't be reached there, so it won't be
Yeah.
effective. So we have to think about that as well. So
Yeah. So what do you think then? If you're going to set up based on the type of product, I would assume there's kind of a general research trial that you might think about designing. So how how do you set up the research trials to make sure you're testing what you expect and your model strength is appropriate to really determine efficacy? So, what are the essential parameters that you look for when you're evaluating, and how do you set your model up to make sure you're getting a real result?
that's an awesome question. Yes, right now we do have several models available for testing, and I believe these models are also shared across the university. We just really hope more people can work on this topic. So in
Yeah.
general, we have an in vitro model, which we co-culture the Hismonus with treatment and see how they impact on the number of Hismonus, mainly on the proliferation or killing impact on it. And we also have in vivo models, either can be in the battery cages or isolators or the floor pens. Depends on the situation and the scales of the trial. And also, I don't have this, but I think the University of Arkansas and also another lab at UJ has a lateral transmission model that you
Mm.
can actually induce in the transmission in the research setting to understand how these treatment impact on that. But that's a several cautious that you want to use different model. For example, for the in vitro model, um, one thing like is the Hismonus using bacteria as a part of the food to support their
Mm.
proliferation and growth. So when you're testing in vitrally, you have to think about what kind of carrier of your product has it. Um, and also another, other than bacteria, they also consume the starch like as an
Ah,
energy source. So when we're
yeah.
testing the product, you have to think about the carrier. If a carrier is really rich in the starch or carbohydrate, that's going to alert the testing result. So you can
Mm.
either set up the background with a carrier or just trying to remove the carrier for testing. So that's really important. And also, as I mentioned, the bacteria is also the food. Sometimes maybe the treatment has no direct impact on the Hismonus, but can reduce the bacteria. So that can starve the Hismonus and reduce the count, but that's not
Yeah.
direct impact. You have to consider
Right.
that as well to calibrating the background bacteria. So when we
Yeah.
do the in vitro testing, we have to think about that. For the in vivo testings, as I mentioned earlier, the treatment time, challenge time, these are consideration, depends on the mode of action. But when we look at the data, actually a lot of people are asking, what kind of data I'm looking at, which one is the more important in terms of
Hmm.
parameters we have. Um, from my personal perspective, I think it's really important to report the infection percentage, infection rate, mortality, and mortality need to be separated by the mortality of disease or just natural mortality. Along
Yeah.
with that, the lesion scores on the liver and the Zika, which is one of the measure to see the disease progression. And these scores also need to be indicated clearly if it's a lesion scores of infected birds or lesion scores of other birds. That's an entirely different story. So in an ideal situation, we want to see all these parameters present at the same time to have a better understanding of the story. If you're missing one of them, the story can be indicated in different ways. So that's really, really
Yeah.
important to look at. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the lesion scoring, do cecal and liver lesions show up simultaneously, or does one happen before the other?
It's like Sika score. You will see that lesions will be first. So in general, once his monas colonize in the Sika, it's cause necrosis in the Sika and increased permeability of the Sika. That's the time you see the lesion. And then after that, they got a chance to transfer through the powder system to the liver and then cause the liver lesions. So definitely a little bit, time difference between two lesion sites. But during outbreak or mortality, when we open the birds, usually we see both lesions at the same time. Yes, for the turkeys, it's hard to recover from the Zika lesion, but for the chicken, somehow they can recover from it. Same thing for the liver. You may see a scar tissue on the liver, then they got his monas before, but somehow they recovered.
Yeah, that's so amazing, the difference between the two, how impacted the turkeys get and the chickens somehow are cool with it.
It is. It's still a kind of mystery. We do have some evidence. One of the grad students at NC State, Kathleen Kupel, who did a lot of immune research on this topic to compare the turkey and the broilers side by side to see is there any difference between the immune response to the parasites, and that's caused a difference on the response of outcome. Actually, we do some research, but it's not completely answer the questions. But we can see it may be associated with innate immune system response. And also for the turkeys, we see a called cytokine storm syndrome, lack response cause dramatic lesions, all these, response to the challenge. So that's maybe tell you a little bit information about the difference. But again, that's not really a solid proof saying that's a difference. But if we can find a difference, we maybe find a solution for this.
Yeah. Well, I think some of the best research projects never have a final answer. They just lead to new projects that kind of build on the information you got from project one.
Yeah, totally agree. Like a lot of research that maybe not answer the questions, but raise more new questions for further research. Yeah, it's always happening.
Yeah. So based on the current projects that you're doing, are you working more in the area of feed additives still? Because I know you're doing some other nutrition work and, the water treatments. Are you working on the model strength, or is it a combination of all of these things?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination because I'm heavily on extension. So really, the research goal for me is to solve whatever the questions or challenges from the producers. We do have a range of a research project. Since I'm still really new, so I'm kind of exploring different possibilities. So currently, we're working on a mycotoxin project. And also very basic nutrition project with a focus on the feed formulation, economic model, and sustainability model on the top of it. We do also work on the gut health related project, and Blackhead disease is definitely one of them. And we work a lot on the broader breeder side, similar trying to figure out what will be the best strategy to reduce their mortality for the broader breeders. And actually, we also have some a little bit more advanced ideas in nutrition and poultry science in general. As you know, the artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, all these things become more and more involved in our daily life. So we're trying to combine these modern tools on the extension work, as well as data management and research to see if we can combine these tools into the poultry nutrition or poultry world in general. So we do have a student being trained on both nutrition and programming to start some project in that area. So very exciting, but very ambitious.
That is really cool and really ambitious, but as we all know, you still need to have someone at the end, like a human reviewing what happens, because AI can sometimes do some crazy things.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's really just we're trying to figure out how to supervise that, and
Yeah.
also how to try to use them, not like being crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Well, is there anything else on the topic of Blackhead that you wanted to say before we wrap up that portion of the podcast?
I think we covered this pretty well. Really, I just hope more and more people working on this topic with still lack of a understanding of a basic biology of this parasites. If
Hmm.
if you have a background in parasitology or even medical background, take a look at this amazing parasites and try to help us out to better understanding what's going on, and then we can probably will help us better to resolve this problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. The more people you have working on something, the faster you'll get it solved or at least helped.
It is, and I'm really open to share all the resources we have, including the strains or the methodology we've been using, research model. I'm completely open to that. I can even help you to establish the models, from scratch. So just let me know if you're interested in this research area. So
Yeah. Ooh, that's awesome.
It's time for our famous three. Your partner in improving animal performance, Berg and Schmidt. They believe the following additives are necessary in the poultry dietary. Functional lipids for an efficient dietary energy management. Phospholipids for emulsification, achieving a better nutrient intake. MCTs to provide energy and modulate the microflora within the intestines and enzymes for elevated use of fibrous materials and byproducts.
So before we wrap up today, I want to ask you the three questions that we ask all of our guests. The first one is, what is a favorite poultry resource?
awesome. So I can see my friends. So we have a small WhatsApp group, which is all the friends we have in the. I mean, some of friends actually graduate from the same department, living in this area. They're from all different fields like nutrition, management, vet, also some kind of a statistician over there. So we talk a lot on poultry, and it somehow feels like a chat GPT. If I have questions, I send a message in the group, and then someone got a response. We have a discussion. It's really, really helpful. I always think the most updated information maybe is not on the book or literature. It's with people. So that's how you got really updated information, and especially these people are working with birds all the time, so they knows what the reality looks like, what is the current solution over there. So I really enjoy that. That's definitely one of my best resources for poultry information. And also
Yeah.
another individual I want to mention is Dr. Frank Edens from NC State. When I work over there, we're neighbors. So we have a brainstorming almost every single day, talk about the ideas about research, what is and is not being solved, and what new idea we can do. I really enjoy it. I call him, it's like my personal Wikipedia. He's so knowledgeable. If I don't
I
know
love that.
something, I'll check with him first, and then we'll have this discussion. I really miss that. I enjoyed that. And I do have several books with me all the time, just as a reference. Actually, it's on my table if you can see it.
Yeah.
Mostly nutrition. This is one of my favorite poultry nutrition and feeding from Dr. Jim Pasty. Very easy to understand book. Really enjoy to read it. Very practical. And we also have chicken nutrition and some kind of nutrition table like Brazilian tables. I use this as reference whenever I need something. And also the Scott chicken nutrition book is almost like a Bible for the poultry nutrition world. I really enjoy it. Yeah.
Those are great. I really like your using people as Wikipedia. I agree that there's a lot of knowledge that's ahead of the book, so it's great.
It is. Yeah.
What is a favorite non-poultry resource that you use?
Actually, I want to say YouTube. It is. Sometimes I'm a visual person, so I want to see things happening. And if you have video demonstration, it's really helped me to understand new things. I use YouTube a lot. If for example, all these, artificial intelligence project we're trying to work with, if I don't understand the concept, I just search on the YouTube. A lot of videos made in a really good ways to tell
Mm-hmm.
you how to understanding a concept. And also I learned from that for my extension program, because some audience maybe have no knowledge about poultry science. How can I deliver the information more effectively or using the language that everyone can understand? So I would say YouTube is really great resources.
Yeah.
Not only for the poultry, but also just learn new things or as entertainment tools. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the visualization too, so I can appreciate that. So my last question is, for somebody who wants to get into the poultry industry, what's your best advice to be successful?
I mean, at first, definitely professional education you have in the college or grad school, that's a foundation of everything. But on the top of it, I think the networking, building your own connection is very, very important and often being ignored when people working in this field. Again, first, the most often knowledge is among the people. Talking to them, we will learn a lot all the time. And also, it's a small poultry world. You really want to connect with everyone. That's almost part of a life. And I'm really enjoying interact with all these, industrial or academic
Mm-hmm.
professionals. That really makes this job very interesting and fun to me. And also, making networking or connections is never passive. It takes effort. It's not like you go in there and say hi to everyone and you got connections. I always tell my student and my group saying, you need some efforts. It's almost like preparing taking exams and learning from a classes. So we actually have this whole policy in the lab that we make an Excel sheet for the students, and they grab this sheet, they meet people, they put down the contact information, the notes, what they're talking about as the materials, and they bring them back and then review it before the next meeting, just trying to really actively build up their connections. I think it's really, really helpful. We're actually turning into this whole thing into a business card competition. Whoever got the most connections win a certain award. It used to be a gift card, and now it's become like associated with their salary. They got $250 salary increase whenever they win a competition. So
That is heavily motivational. I think that's a good way to teach networking.
It is. Actually, it's really effective. They've been meet a lot of people in the past, years. It's really helpful. Yeah.
Well, thank you for talking with me today. This was it was really fun, and I like hearing about the work that everybody's doing, especially when you're so open to teaching and collaboration. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah. Thank you for having me here.